Okay, quickly, let's look at coastal hazards and the management of these individual coastal hazards. Now, this will be the last part of the syllabus content because in part one, we were able to understand the work of the sea and wind in eroding, transporting, and depositing materials. We've been able to cover how to describe and explain the formation of different landforms associated with these processes. We looked at cliff, wave cut platform, caves, arcs, stack, storm, bay, and headlands. Looked at beach, spits, and coastal sand dunes. So we went forward to also look at, we've been able to cover coral reefs and mangrove swamps and the condition for their development. So in this video, we'll now look at to know that the coast present hazards and opportunity for people, and these hazards include coastal erosion majorly and tropical storms. And we should now explain what can be done to manage the impact of coastal erosion. Then the case study for this topic has to do with the opportunities presented by an area or areas of coastline, the associated hazard and their management, which we'll not look at in this video. I'll do a different series on case studies, but for this now, we just need to cover this aspect of coastal hazard and its management. Now, coast, approximately who is bordered. You can see from this diagram, you can pause the video and list at least the opportunity that is presented by a coast. The opportunity that is presented by a coast. So let's move quickly. Tourism is one major importance of a coast. Resort along coast, tourists enjoy using boats for swimming and sunbathing. Sport is another importance where many sports use coast for sailing, surfing, and diving. Fishing. Many people make their living from catching and selling fish on the coast. Now, oil and gas reserves are found under oceans near the coast, so you can do onshore mining. Housing. Many people live along the coast because of its beauty and relaxing lifestyle. And there's presence of sandstones, and sandstones are used for building process. And industries, many industries located near the coast for easy of trade for and transport, and it's also a major source of salt. It's also a source for water. Through desalination process, you can remove the excess salt content that is found in ocean water to make it suitable for drinking. Transport. So many ports are found in coastal areas and help trading, and it also aids traveling between countries. So these are the individual coastal opportunities, though there are more. You can think of more. Like I just mentioned, it provides water for drinking. It can also be a source of electricity. Using the waves from the coast, you can generate electricity. Source of fresh water, so you can actually desalinize coastal water using fractional distillation, and also you can use reverse osmosis to remove the salt content that is found in water and make it suitable for drinking also. So coastal hazards. Now there are different forms of coastal hazards. We have sea level rise, which is usually caused by global warming. So low-lying countries become vulnerable to flooding. So because of global warming, ice caps and glaciers melt, and the water will now be added to the sea content. So countries that are low-lying countries, because of the sea level rise, they can actually be submerged. And pollution, sewage discharge, oil spill, litters thrown into the sea can harm coastal ecosystem and the environment, which is also an hazard. Now, overfishing. So many fish stocks around the world are being overfished to dangerous level. Erosion, coastal erosion. So many coastlines are being eroded by stronger storms and rising sea levels. and tropical storm frequency of storm and magnitude increases coastal flood, storm surges, and wind damage. So all these are the various form of coastal hazards, and we need to know how we'll be able to manage this individual coastal hazard. And there are two ways in which coastal management take place. It takes place through hard engineering, which is quite very expensive, and we also have soft engineering. So we'll now quickly look at the different hard engineering methods. So hard engineering as a form of coastal management involve building artificial structure. So it involves building artificial structure. So you should take note of this, because uh, these are the major differences between hard engineering and soft engineering. Now, it involves building artificial structure which try to control coastal processes. So hard engineering approach to coastal management tend to be expensive, last for only a short amount of time, are visually unattractive, and unsustainable. Now, these are the disadvantages of this individual coastal, of this hard engineering as a means of coastal management. Now, they often increase erosion in other places further down the coast. So, let's see these individual methods quickly. Seawalls. Now, seawalls are usually built along the front of cliffs to protect the settlement or another land of high economic importance. They are often recurved. You can see it. They are often recurved, which means waves are reflected back on themselves. So it's recurved. So waves are reflected back on themselves. This can cause the erosion of materials at the base of the seawall. Now, you should take note of the diagram also, because in your exams, sometimes they will give you the diagram and just expect you to identify which type of hard engineering and state how it's able to control the process of coastal erosion. Now, advantage of seawall. It protects the base of the cliff. Now, you see the cliff is here, and the seawall is built at the base. So it protects the base of the cliff, land, and building against erosion, and it can prevent coastal flooding in some areas. Disadvantage: it's expensive to build. Curved seawall reflects the energy of the wave back into the sea. This means that the wave remain powerful. Other times, the wall may begin to erode easily, and the cost of maintenance is quite very high. Then groins. Now, groins are wooden barriers constructed at right angle. They are wooden barriers constructed at right angles to the beach to retain the materials. So you see, constructed at right angle to the beach, you see materials are still being retained. They are not eroded. They are still being deposited here. The beach materials, including sand and pebbles, are trapped between the grounds and cannot be transported away by longshore drift. Now, grounds encourage a wide beach, which help absorb what? Energy from the wave. Now, reducing the rate of cliff erosion. The photograph, that's this photograph, illustrates the difference of how far wave travel inland when sediment is trapped. So you see, as a result of this trapped sediment here, the wave cannot travel far inland, because it will not create a steeper gradient for the water and the wave as it's coming towards the beach. Now, advantage: it prevents the movement of beach materials along the coast by longshore drift, and it allows the buildup of a beach material also. Beach are a natural defense against erosion and an attraction for tourists. But disadvantage, it can be seen as unattractive and is quite costly to build and maintain. Now we have revampment. Traditionally, these have been wooden slated barriers constructed towards the rear of beaches. So you see, this is the cliff and it's also at the base here. Um, to protect the base of a cliff. So that's the major function. Protect the base of the cliff. Energy from wave is dissipated by them breaking against the revampment. So this also helps to dissipate the energy from the wave. So the major difference between this and seawalls is that seawalls are not built to absorb the energy from the wave, but revampment actually absorbs the energy, dissipates the energy from the wave, at the same time protects the cliff here from further erosional process. Now, advantage of revampment. Revampment do not impede people walking along a beach. It's cheaper and less intrusive than a seawall, and less beach material is eroded compared to a seawall. Now, disadvantage of revampment. Revampment can impede access to beach. It has a short lifespan. Revampment do not look attractive. Revampment destroys habitats. And revampment affects the coastal system and reduces the input of sediment. Then we have gabions. Now, gabions are wire mesh cages. Gabions are wire mesh cages filled with pebbles or rocks. So when you have wire mesh filled with pebbles inside and rocks inside, they are placed at the back of sandy beaches. As water enters the cages, wave energy is absorbed and dissipated. So this diagram shows a gabion. Now, advantage: it does not impede access along the along the beach. Sorry, at around 110 pounds a meter. They are cheap and easy to construct, and the structure is quick to build and cheap to maintain. For the cost, they are good value for money as they can last between 20 to 25 years. However, the disadvantage is access to the beach is difficult. In damaged state, gabions can be very dangerous because of the wire mesh that is used to construct it. Gabions are restricted to sandy beaches. Gabions do not impede the movement of sediment along the coast by longshore drift. Now, we also have another one called the breakwater. These are large concrete blocks and boulders located offshore to change the direction of wave and reduce longshore drift. They are also help to absorb wave energy. So they are large concrete blocks and boulders. Advantage: beaches remain in a natural appearance. Disadvantage: is quite difficult to maintain, unattractive, does not protect the cliff and directly, and does not stop beach material from being eroded. Now, we are done with hard engineering. Let's quickly go through soft engineering process of coastal management. Now, soft engineering does not involve building artificial structure. So that's the major difference between the two. It does not involve building artificial structure, but take a more sustainable and natural approach to coastal management. Uh, Compared to hard engineering, soft engineering approach are less expensive, are more long-term, is attractive and sustainable as they work with natural processes. So below, let's explore some of them. Now, first we'll have beach nourishment. Beaches are made higher and wider by importing sand and shingles to an area affected by longshore drift. So you import sand and shingles from an area that is affected by longshore drift. You come there and you deposit the sand and shingles there to reduce the impact of that longshore drift. Now, quite cheap and retain the natural appearance of the beach and preserve the natural appearance also of the beach. But the disadvantages: offshore dredging of sand and shingles increases erosion in other areas because the sand and shingles is actually being dredged from another area that will be used to nourish the beach. So the major disadvantage is that area where you dredge the sand and shingles will now be affected. The coastal system there will be affected. Now, manage retreat it has to do with coastal realignment. This is when areas of the coast are allowed to erode. You just leave it to be eroded. This is usually in areas where the land is of low value. If the land is of low value, you just allow it. So you manage the retreat. Now, manage retreat retain the natural balance of the coastal system. Eroded materials encourage the development of beaches and salt marsh, which are mangrove swamps. Disadvantage: people lose their livelihood. Example, farmers, because if they cultivate close to the coast and you allow it to just erode itself naturally. So these people will need to be compensated. So we also have dune regeneration. Dune regeneration involves taking action to build up dunes. Taking action to build up dunes. Remember when we looked at formation of sand dunes and increase vegetation. This helped to strengthen the dunes and prevent coastal retreat. If you don't know how dunes are formed, you can watch the part 1 of this video. It will explain for you how dunes are formed. Now, new sand dunes can be created to protect from coastal flooding. Often, we have a Miriam grass that formed the first colony within sand dunes. Miriam grass is planted to hold the dunes together. Wooden boardwalks can be built to encourage people not to walk on the dunes. Advantage: dune regeneration provides a barrier between land and sea. So wave energy is absorbed easily and stabilization is cheap. It also maintains a natural looking coastline. And disadvantage: during dune regeneration, the land needs to be carefully managed so that any new vegetation that is planted is appropriately protected from trampling by humans. So we have beach reprofiling. Beach reprofiling involves redistributing sediment from the lower part of the beach to the upper part of the beach. That's you reprofile, you rearrange the landscape of the beach. Now, advantage is cheap and simple and reduce the energy of the wave. It only works when wave energy is low and need to be repeated continuously. Okay, I think with this part we've been able to explain the different we've been able to explain the different form of coastal management. We looked at coastal hazard and also coastal opportunities. So the next part that we need to look at in line with coastal processes is where we looked at the case study, and also we'll look at sample examination questions on case study. So just watch out and subscribe to the channel so you get constant notification when a new video is uploaded.